Welcome to Computer Security and Internet Safety Fundamentals. This beginning-level course is designed for you to watch from start to finish. And at the end of it, you'll have a secure computer or laptop for day-to-day use, and will have the knowledge to prevent viruses, malware, and other security breaches on both your computer, your network, and other people's. The things I'm going to have you do in this course are everyday things you should be doing as you travel through the internet. They aren't too complex that they'll be over a beginner skill level, and I picked the best balance to give you security while still enjoying the convenience of your technology. I'll take you through securing your computer, to securing your wireless router at home. I'll show you how to make sure your web browser is secure, and then how you can stay safe on the internet. Finally, I'll show you how to protect your privacy online. I've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. It's very important to keep up to date with Windows security updates. On the second Tuesday of the month, Microsoft releases patches and updates for Windows. It actually has the nickname Patch Tuesday among IT and computer professionals. These updates consist of new virus definitions, operating system bug fixes, and patches for security holes that have been discovered since the last update. Keeping up to date with these security fixes is the very first step to knowing how to stay safe on the internet and on your computer. It's also a great skill to know how to manually update your computer, especially if you're using a computer that hasn't been turned on in a while. You could have upwards of hundreds of security patches to apply. But first, let's make sure your computer is set to download and install updates automatically. To do that, I'm using Windows 8.1, and I'm going to move my mouse to the right-hand side of the screen to expand the Charms bar and click Search. In the search bar, type Windows Update. From the search results, click Windows Update Settings. Here's where I can see that I'm set to automatically install updates. That means that my computer, when new patches are released on Tuesdays, is going to automatically download and then install them. If this wasn't the case, if this isn't what you see here, or if you want to change that, you can click Choose How Updates Get Installed. From the drop-down menu, you can change this setting. Now, I highly recommend setting it to install updates automatically. This way, you don't even have to remember it, but you can choose to download the updates, but choose whether or not you want to install them. You can also have your computer simply check for the updates, but then decide whether or not you want to download and install them. And finally, you can have it set to never check for updates, which is not recommended at all. When you've made your choice, click Apply, and your computer will remember the setting. To close out of that box, move your mouse to the top right-hand side of the screen and click the X in the top right-hand corner. Now I'm going to show you how to download and update Windows manually at any time. Again, let's expand the Charms bar, click Search, and type Windows Update again. Except this time, I'm going to click Windows Update. Now I can see how many updates I have here. If I don't have my computer set to automatically download and install updates, I can click Check for Updates on the left-hand side. This is something that you're going to want to do if you're turning on a computer that you haven't used in a very long time. It probably is in need of many security fixes. So once you've checked for updates and downloaded them, now you need to install them. I'm going to click on 32 important updates are available. This is going to show me all the updates. I can see on this screen that there's several Office patches. If I scroll down a little further, I can see that there's some more patches for my operating system. On the left-hand side, I can see which updates are considered important by Microsoft and which ones are optional. The optional updates are ones that aren't necessary to fix important security holes. I'll click back on Important. Now I can install them by clicking Install on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to click to close out of this because there's one more thing I want to show you. Most installs will download and install without ever needing any additional action from you. However, occasionally, it might need your permission. You'll know because you'll either get a very large pop-up on the screen, or you'll get a notification on the bottom right-hand side of your screen near the clock. You'll have an Action Center message. If that happens, you can click on it. It's always okay and it's always recommended to install important Windows security fixes when they come up on the screen. Up next, I'm going to show you how to keep your Mac up to date with security fixes. There's a few ways to make sure your Mac is up to date with important security patches and updates. If the App Store is kept in the dock, look for a notification in the top right-hand side of the app icon. This is going to tell you that there's important updates. You can also click on the Apple icon on the top left-hand side and select Software Update. This will open up the App Store and take you directly to the Updates tab. If there's a major operating system upgrade, you'll see it and it's a separate install. For example, here's OS X Yosemite, and I can click on the free upgrade if I wanted to. I don't have to do this for any existing software updates for my current operating system. For example, directly below this, I can see that there's a software update. It's telling me that there's updates available, and if I click More, I can see exactly what's going to be updated. I can either update each item individually, or I can click the Update button, click Agree, and the update will begin. I can minimize this while the update's running. It's very important to keep up to date with security patches no matter what operating system you're on. If you don't have the app icon available on the dock to tell you when there's an update, periodically go in and see if there's any important software updates that you need for your Mac. Every computer needs to have antivirus software installed. It's designed to constantly scan files that you download, open, and access. Windows 8 and 8.1 comes with a built-in virus protection called Windows Defender. If you're using any other version of Windows, you can download Microsoft Security Essentials to get the same protection. You can download it by searching the Microsoft website or doing a Google search for Microsoft Security Essentials. From here, you can click the purple Download Now button and then follow the instructions to download it and install it on your computer. You can also instead choose to use any other virus protection that you prefer, such as Nor-McAfee. At the end of the day, it's your computer, and it should be your personal preference, as long as you make sure that you have some sort of antivirus that's running. It's also important that you only pick one antivirus app that scans your computer in real time. You'll run into trouble with more than one running because they'll constantly be trying to access and scan the same file. Because I'm using 8.1, I'm going to be using the default Windows Defender software. Now, this is going to give me real-time file protection against viruses, but to stay safe on the internet while I'm browsing, I also need spyware, adware, and other intrusion detection software. For this, I highly recommend Malwarebytes Anti-Malware, and you can download that from malwarebytes.org. You can run this for free as a one-time spyware removal utility if your system runs into trouble, but it's worth it to purchase the extra protection to keep it running and updated all the time. This won't interfere with your existing antivirus program. They work together to scan completely different things. It's also very important that it's not just enough to have an antivirus app on your computer. Even if it's running and doing real-time scanning, it needs to run a full scan at least once a week. Windows 8 will automatically scan your computer. To find out when that happens, let's go to the System Maintenance settings. We do that by opening the Charms bar, clicking Search, and start typing Maintenance. In the search results, click Change Automatic Maintenance Settings. Your computer is set to run maintenance tasks every day. These tasks include doing things such as installing software updates, doing full scans, and other diagnostics. So right now, by default, your system is set to run a full scan every day at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, if your computer happens to be turned off at 3 o'clock in the morning, then the next time your computer is idle, it will scan it. I'll click the X in the top right-hand side to close out of this. Finally, you can always run a scan manually whenever you feel like you need it. Your system might be acting a little different, or you could be running into problems. To do that, open the Charms bar again, and this time, search for Windows Defender. Click Windows Defender from the search results, and this is going to bring up the scan box. Now, this is the same box that you'll get if you downloaded and installed Microsoft Security Essentials on a different version of Windows. To run a scan at any time, you can first choose your scan options. For example, a quick scan will take much less time, and it scans the areas where most viruses commonly hang out. A full scan will take much longer and will thoroughly scan every file on your computer. When you've made your choice, click Scan Now, and your computer will start to do a manual scan. So the first step when your system starts acting funny should always be running a scan on your antivirus software. I've covered antivirus and anti-malware software that needs to be on your computer. You also need a firewall running to complete your computer's protection against internet threats. Here's a typical home network diagram. You may have a few computers, maybe it's a desktop computer, and a few laptops. You could have a wireless printer that's connected to your network. You could have a game console and some devices like iPhones or iPads. All these things connect up to your wireless router. Here's your router in the diagram, and you can see that all these things are connected to it. Your router also acts as a firewall. Now, it's named that because it's an actual boundary to keep the dangerous things outside. The unknown internet outside of your home network is typically depicted as a cloud icon. That's also where the term the cloud comes from, for programs that you access on the internet. Back to the firewall, it scans all the data that's coming into your router from the internet, and then it decides to either block or allow it through to whichever computer or device that's asking for it. Windows comes with a built-in firewall. You shouldn't need to purchase additional firewall software. However, you do need to know how to check and make sure it's turned on and running. We do that by checking your Windows firewall settings. Open up the Charms bar and click Search. Start searching for Windows Firewall. Click Windows Firewall, and the first thing that you can look at is your Windows Firewall state. Right now, I can see that it's turned on. If you need to change that if it was off, you can click Turn Windows Firewall On or Off on the left-hand side. Make sure you have the Turn On Windows Firewall radio button checked on your private network settings and on your public network settings. You'll notice that Notify Me when Windows Firewall blocks a new app has a checkbox next to it. You can leave that checked. Windows is going to notify you if it blocks something that's been installed on your computer. Now, because you installed it, you'd know if it was something that needed to get through. For example, a game that you installed. So be on the lookout for things that you know that you've installed and be wary of things that you know you haven't installed. When you're happy with your changes, click OK at the bottom of the screen, and then click the X to close out of the Windows Firewall setting, and know that your computer is now all protected. Here's some things that you can do to physically protect your computer or laptop. When you have a desktop computer versus a laptop, it's likely that you won't be moving it around. So while there's little to no danger that you'll lose it, there's some safeguards that you can do to secure it from physical access. The first one is simply don't write down your passwords on sticky notes and tape them to your monitor. You never know who's going to see it. I'll be talking about passwords more in this chapter, including why we write down our passwords on sticky notes. Secondly, always lock your computer when you're walking away from it, and make sure that you do have a password to get back into it. If you're using a Mac, to lock the Mac, on the keyboard, hold down the Control key plus the Shift key plus the Eject key, or Control-Shift-Power if your Mac doesn't have an Eject key. To lock a Windows computer, hold down the Windows key and hit L. This is going to instantly lock your screen, as you can see. To get back into it, you need to first unlock it and put in your Windows password. I like to recommend that computers have multiple accounts on them. Even if you're the only person who uses the computer, having multiple user accounts on a computer will prevent your computer from going to a default account on startup. It will also be one additional point of password access, and another user would have to determine which account to get into if they wanted to break into your computer. To add an additional user account in Windows, open the Charms bar and in the search bar type PC Settings. Click PC Settings, and on the left-hand side, click Accounts. Click Other Accounts on the left-hand side, and then simply click Add an Account and follow all the steps to add an additional user account. Now, there's a few more additional points to consider if you have a laptop versus a computer. To physically protect your laptop, the most important thing that you can do when traveling is to make sure that you're using a backpack or some other inconspicuous non-laptop bag while you're traveling. You don't want to call attention to the fact that you have a laptop in there. Something else that I like to do is always make sure my laptop is physically touching me in some way. If I'm at a coffee shop, my hand's on the keyboard while I'm typing, but if I turn away from it even to talk to somebody, I still keep one hand on my laptop. That way, you'll know in a second if it's swiped off the table. If you're going to put it below you, you can put it in between your feet or keep it leaning against one leg. That way, you get used to always having it there, and it's also a great safeguard against forgetting it somewhere. You can also consider purchasing something called a cable lock to keep your laptop in place. A cable lock can be purchased from sites like Amazon.com, and it attaches to your laptop and some other immobile object, like a table or a chair. Finally, use password management software on a laptop. A laptop is not a place that you want to store passwords directly in the browser. Password management software will allow you to input passwords as you need them, and you need 1Password to actually get into that password management software. So it's a great thing to use for a laptop. and I will be talking about that in a future video. So while we usually think of computer security in a virtual sense, it's easy to forget that the first point of entry to a computer or laptop is getting to it physically. I mentioned how it's not a good idea to write down passwords and tape them to your monitor. I also absolutely understand that it's just about impossible to remember all of our passwords nowadays. More and more places have complex password requirements, and we're also being required to change our password more often. These are very good things, and I'm definitely not complaining. But fortunately, there's good, safe password management software out there for just such a purpose. The two top contenders as password management software is LastPass, which you can check out at lastpass.com, and 1Password, which you can check out at agilebits.com/1password. I have 1Password installed here, so I'm going to use that to show you how password management software works. When you install the software, it gives you this browser toolbar button. It's always running, so that when you create a new login somewhere, it's going to store it into your vault. Your vault is on your desktop, and for an additional fee on both pieces of software, you can sync your passwords across all of your devices and computers. Now, one password that you actually need to remember, and that's the password to unlock your vault. So I'm going to put that in right now. The vault will be unlocked, and now I can see all the logins. Let's take Etsy for example. Now, 1Password stored this Etsy account while I had logged into it. If I click on Etsy, I can see the username here. I can also see the URL that's needed to log into it. Now, this is all fake data, so I'm not going to worry about revealing any of this to you. But what you can do with the password, if you ever need to just see what it is and not access the website, you can, in fact, reveal the password. So now we can see what it is. But in most cases, you'll never need to do this. I'm going to close out of 1Password now and show you how it works. Let's see it work with a real login. I'm going to click on Etsy. I'm on the Etsy website. There's a sign-in button, so I'll click on that. Now, when I signed into Etsy and registered for the first time, 1Password stored that login for me. So now I'm on the username and password field, but I don't need to know what those are. As long as the 1Password toolbar icon is running, I can click on it when I'm at the sign-in screen. Now, the software is smart enough to know that I'm on Etsy.com, so it's only going to show me the login for Etsy. All I need to do is click on the word Etsy, and it's going to populate my username and password and automatically log me in. I didn't need to know what those were. So that's how easy it is to use password management software like LastPass or 1Password. I highly recommend using some sort of password management software. Not only is it more secure than writing passwords down somewhere, but it can also save you hours of frustration when you can't get your work done because of a forgotten password. You can encrypt an entire hard drive or just certain files that you want to keep for your eyes only. If you use a Mac or need a very robust solution, you can use a third-party application like TrueCrypt or other file or hard drive encryption software like BitLocker. If you use Windows, however, and just need basic file protection for things like password lists, taxes, or other financial documentation, you can use something called EFS, which stands for Encrypting File Protection, and this functionality is built right into Windows. To start, right-click on a file or folder that you want to encrypt and select Properties. From here, make sure you're on the General tab and then click Advanced. Finally, place a checkbox next to Encrypt Contents to Secure Data, and then click OK and click OK again. Once your file or folder is encrypted, an encryption key is created. You won't even know the key is there or doing anything provided you log into your computer correctly. No one else but you logging in will be able to see the contents of the file or the folder. You may get prompted after you click on OK whether or not you want to encrypt any other folders that you may make while you're in that file or folder. The choice is up to you. However, the problem arises if something happens to that encryption key. That's the only thing that's allowing you into that file. You should be prompted to back it up once it's encrypted, and it's very important that you do so. If you don't get prompted, you can come down to the bottom right-hand side of your screen and go over to the taskbar. The prompt will most likely be in there. Here it is, and it's designated with an icon with a key and an exclamation mark on it. I'm going to click on it, and it's going to bring me up to the Backup the File Encryption Certificate and Key dialog box. I'm going to select Backup Now. To start the export wizard to back up your encryption key, click Next. You can keep the defaults and select Next. You need to give your encryption key a password. You won't need this password every time you access your encrypted file. You'll only need it if you ever need to recover the actual encryption key. That is, if something happens to your computer and you have to restore it from backup. Type in a password, type it again to confirm it, and then click Next. Finally, you have to select the name of the file you want to export, and you have to choose where it's going to go. This is an ideal solution to put on an external hard drive or a USB thumb drive key. In this case, I'm going to put it into my OneDrive folder for now, and I need to give it a file name. It doesn't matter what the file name is, you can make it something that's meaningful to you. Create the name and click Save, and then click Next. You can verify all your information here, and then click Finish. Your encryption key is backed up, and now you can see that your file has been encrypted because it's colored with green instead of black. Now your file's been encrypted, and you've successfully backed up your encryption key, which is a very crucial step in case something ever happens to your computer and you have to rebuild those files, you can still access all your encrypted files. The interface to change the settings for your wireless router is accessed via web browser. Once you're connected to a particular network that the router is attached to, you can log in via the browser, and then you can change the settings for the router. But you first have to log in. Routers come with a username and a password. Those can be the default ones that come when you buy it right from the factory, or you can change it. I do recommend changing the default password. It's usually written on the underside of the actual physical device itself. I'm already logged into this particular router. This is a Netgear router. To change the setting, while every router's interface is different, you're going to look for a setting that involves the word password. In this case, on the left-hand side, in the maintenance area, there's a link that says Set Password. Clicking that link is going to bring me to a screen where I can type in the old password, that is, the one that's written on the underside of the device itself, and here's where I can create a new password. This way, even if a would-be hacker knows the default passwords or knows your particular router password for whatever reason, once you change the password, they won't be able to access it once they're connected to your network. When you connect to an available wireless network, you can choose the one that you want to connect to from a list of available wireless networks. That is, a wireless network that's broadcasting near where you are physically, that's within the range of your device, whether it be a tablet, phone, laptop, or computer. The name of these wireless networks is called the SID, SSID, Security Set Identifier. You can see the SID in the list of available connections because the wireless network owner has made the decision to broadcast the name of the SID. So you can see that all of these are completely separate wireless networks, and the owners of these networks have chosen to broadcast the name. As an additional security measure, you can turn off this ability to broadcast that name. Anyone who wants to connect to your network will first have to know exactly what it's called and how to spell it correctly. On a Windows and Mac regular Wi-Fi connection, you can click on the option to join another network, and that's how you'd be able to put in this new SID. Otherwise, you could just start typing the wireless network name that the owner of that connection has given you to put in. Here's what you need to look for on your router to turn off broadcasting. In your router's settings, go into your main wireless settings screen. In the area where you can see the SID broadcasted name of your wireless network, there's going to be a checkbox. In this case, mine says Enable SID Broadcast. I'm going to uncheck that button. When I save my changes, this wireless network name will not show up in the list of available connections anymore. Somebody who wants to connect to my network will have to click Join Another Network and type this in manually to connect. This is an example of a security feature that could get in the way of convenience. You'll have to tell people who want to connect what the name of your network is and even that you have one at all. But it's very important that you know that this option is there. It can be very confusing to figure out which wireless security options are the best ones. As of this recording, the current security setting that's the most effective is WPA2 AES. So that's the one that you want to be looking for. When you choose a passphrase for it, make it a good one. You may still be using an older router that has an encryption mode called WEP. This is a very old, obsolete security protocol. This router is new enough that it doesn't even support it, so it's not even listed as an option. If the settings for your router are currently set to WEP, change it right away to WPA2. And if your router doesn't support WPA2, it's probably time for a new router. So you've changed the default password to access your router, and you've either changed the SID to something that doesn't identify you directly, or you've turned off the ability to broadcast its name. Make sure that you take the time to set the security encryption to the most current that it possibly can run. Let's go over some recommended security settings if you use the Internet Explorer web browser. This list is not exhaustive, meaning there's a lot more we could do, but I picked the features that will give you the most security without compromising convenience, and one that will still give you a good and fun web experience. At the very top of the list is to always make sure you're running the correct version, as each new version comes with more security options and bug fixes for previous security leaks. To find out what version you're running, click the gear icon on the top right-hand side and choose About Internet Explorer. I'm running Internet Explorer 11, which has a feature that will always make sure it's up to date. So if you're also running Internet Explorer, place a checkbox next to Install New Versions automatically, and you'll always have security fixes. If you weren't running this version, when you view the About Internet Explorer page, there will be a link to update it. I'll click Close. Now let's look at the security settings for the browser. I'm going to click back on the gear, and this time I'm going to select Internet Options. I'm going to click on the Security tab. Internet Explorer gives you 4 zones to work with. When you visit a website, Internet Explorer uses the rules that are set in this Internet zone. When you visit a site in your local network, in front of the firewall, it's considered local intranet. Finally, you may have put websites that you can always know that you trust or that you always want to restrict the settings on. The way these zones work is that Microsoft has set up default levels of security restrictions for these zones. These levels have been set up to give you the most security, again, without compromising convenience. Now, you may need to change these if a special case arises. For example, if you're having trouble accessing features on a website that you know is safe, you can add it to the Trusted Site zone, which has a lower level of security by allowing you to download certain types of files that you know won't harm your computer. At any time, you can click Sites in a particular zone and add certain websites to that zone. I'll click Close to get out of this dialog. If you've done this in the past, or if you've made a mistake with the setting and now you're running into trouble, you can always reset these zones to their default values by clicking on the zone and clicking the Default Level button. This button is always grayed out unless you've made changes. Now, it's always recommended to make sure this internet zone, at the very least, stays on medium-high. The next option I consider personal preference. I'm going to click back over to the General tab. You can choose to have Internet Explorer delete your browsing history when you exit and close out of the browser every time. If you want this to happen, you can place a checkbox next to Delete Browsing History on Exit. It's definitely a major convenience item to have your web history and other cookies stored, so you might not want to do this, but it is a good practice if you're on a laptop. I'll be talking more about how cookies work in a later video. Let's head over to the Privacy tab. Here you want to make sure that you have a pop-up blocker turned on, so place a checkbox next to Turn on Pop-up Blocker. I'll click OK here. Part of the default security settings in Internet Explorer is to have something called the Smart Screen Filter turned on. This filter will warn you if you're visiting a website that's considered unsafe. That is, if it's been reported by somebody else that malicious code resides on that site. To make sure it's turned on, click the gear icon, click Safety, and then make sure it says Turn Off Smart Screen Filter. If you see the Turn Off option, that means it's already on. So if you have the choice to turn it on, then definitely do so. In a later video, I'm going to be talking about website privacy policies and what Do Not Track requests mean. For now, though, let's look at the security settings in the popular Mozilla Firefox browser. I've talked about some recommended browser security settings for Internet Explorer and Mozilla Firefox. Now let's talk about the settings for the Google Chrome browser. Remember, these are settings that give you the best compromise between security and convenience and still making the browser fun to use. Like the other browsers, the first thing that we want to check to make sure is that Google Chrome is up to date. In the Google Chrome browser, click the 3 lines in the top right-hand side, just like we did for Firefox, and this time select About Google Chrome. It's going to check for updates, and then immediately tell me whether or not it's up to date or if it needs to be updated. Right now I can see that I'm up to date, but if it did need to be updated, there'd be a link to download and install it right from here. Now let's check some privacy settings. Click the 3 lines again on the top right-hand side and select Settings. Scroll down in the Settings screen and click Show Advanced Settings. This is going to bring up some more options, including privacy options. The first thing that we want to do is make sure that Enable Phishing and Malware Protection has a check mark next to it. After that, let's click Content Settings. Just like other browsers, if you don't want your history and cookies saved when you close out of the browser, select Keep Local Data only until you quit your browser. Let's scroll down on this screen. We also want to make sure our pop-up blocker is turned on. So make sure the Do Not Allow Any Site to Show Pop-ups has a radio button that's selected. There's also an option to ask you when a site would like to track your physical location, that is, where your computer or laptop is physically when you access a website. This can be done for convenience, such as looking up local information, or it could also be tracked to serve you ads. It's your choice whether you want to turn this feature on or off. The default to ask is just fine. When you're all done with your changes, click Done in the bottom right-hand side. To close out of the settings in Google Chrome, since it opened up a new browser tab to show you the settings, you can simply close out of that tab and go back to your browsing. Up next, let's examine the settings for the browser that comes with Apple computers, Safari. In this day and age, we can buy almost anything on the internet. We can also file our taxes, check finance account balances, and fill out forms that require us to first put in our personal information before we can submit the form. For example, take the student loan site. We can sign in and pay our bill and check our balance. It's very important to be able to look critically at every website that wants your information. These websites need to be held at high standards of security to be able to take your data and pass it through various internet ports. Here are some ways that you can tell if a site is secure before giving it credit card data, social security numbers, or any piece of data you don't feel safe sending over an unsecure connection. What constitutes a secure connection? It's one that encrypts your data before sending it. The data is encrypted on your end, sent through the internet, and then decrypted on the other side once the form has been submitted safely. Take this site. We can see the URL is http://aesuccess.org. The most easy and common way to recognize if a site is secure by looking for a padlock icon on the form. It's important to note that this padlock icon is not available everywhere on the site, only on the page where you're transmitting the personal data. So the padlock won't appear until that form appears. For example, here's a sign-in button. If I click that sign-in button, it's going to bring me to a form, and several things have changed. Now here I'm going to be submitting my username and password. This is data that I need to know is secure. You can see that a few things have happened when this pop-up has occurred. The first thing is, the browser title bar has changed. Secondly, a padlock icon has appeared at the top of the page. This tells me that this site is secure. You can also tell by the URL of the site. When I showed you that first URL, it uses the HTTP protocol, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. That's what the HTTP stands for. You've probably seen it when you go to a site, it precedes the www. However, when you go to a site to send financial or other sensitive data, the site adds an extra layer of security. It's called SSL, and it stands for Secure Sockets Layer. The protocol changes, and it becomes HTTPS. If you start looking for it, you'll notice it's always on bank and credit card sites and any other site that could contain private data. Secure Sockets Layer doesn't just encrypt your information. It also verifies that the website you're on is who it claims to be by a special certificate. On every browser where you see that padlock icon, you can click on that padlock icon. It's also going to bring up the official certificate so that you can verify that you're on the site and it's who they claim to be. So what happens if you're on a site that wants login information and you don't see the padlock or the HTTPS in the URL bar? You absolutely can transmit the data. It's not that you can't, but it's up to you to make the decision whether or not you want to. What it means is that the data you send will be unencrypted. And while it might not be intercepted, it could be intercepted. because your data is being sent as plain, readable text. You can ask yourselves questions to think critically about what type of data you're sending this way. Is it sensitive? And finally, what could happen if somebody intercepted it? Answering these questions will help you decide if you want to go through with sending the data or not. The number one method of knowing is your intuition. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not. Here's a basic list of some things that you can start doing right away to protect yourself against viruses and malware from your computer. I'll be going into detail a lot more about these things in this chapter, and I've already covered some of it, but it's a great overall list. The first item is not to download any software without first investigating reviews, and a review can even be a simple Google search. The important results will bubble right to the top of Google searches, so you should know right away whether a particular piece of software is worth downloading or something to stay away from. Beware of strange characteristics in emails too, especially if that email comes with an attachment. And by strange characteristics, I mean emails that come from your friends, but it sounds a little out of character for them. For example, maybe there's words spelled wrong that they don't usually spell wrong, or there's lots of punctuation in it they don't normally use. So look for poor grammar, missed words, and other strange characteristics, and then finally, trust your judgment about them. If the email looks off, it probably is, and don't click on any attachments or any links that's in that email. If you do get an email forward about a possible virus alert or a good product offer that's going around, check the website called Snopes.com. I'm going to be talking about Snopes.com in a future video. Make sure you always keep up to date with your operating system, virus, and malware updates. This is the number one thing that's going to keep your system protected against viruses and malware. Something you can also do is check for fake ad banners. They disguise themselves as Windows dialog boxes, and they look very real. Something that you can do if you're not sure if it's a fake pop-up or not is put your mouse over the box. If the cursor of the mouse changes to a hand, that means it's a clickable link, and therefore it's a fake Windows dialog box. If it's too late and these banners keep popping up and simply won't go away, at this point your source of action is to immediately run your antivirus and anti-malware programs. This should take care of it, provided the virus definition files are up to date. Don't engage in something called peer-to-peer file sharing. This is software like LimeWire or Napster, in which your computer acts as a server for other people to download files and you can download from them. In many cases, it's just illegal, but it's also a very easy way to accidentally download some sort of virus or malware onto your computer directly. Always know and try to memorize the dangerous file extensions before downloading them. These file extensions are .bat, .cmd, and .exe. These can contain executable code that can run on your computer and cause viruses to happen. Finally, never let a stranger remotely fix your computer or a company that you've never heard of offer to remote in and fix any problems that you might be having with your computer. If you're not sure, either have somebody else do it, take it into a reputable shop, or do a Google search on the person or company that's asking to come in and fix your computer. Now that you have the general list of what to do to protect yourself, in this chapter, we're going to go over some very specific things that you can do to protect yourself. Let's go over some common types of phishing emails that you may get so that you'll have the skills to know how to deal with these emails. A phishing email is called that because the email is phishing for your information. They're trying to see what kind of information or clicks they can get out of you. So I have 3 very different types of emails here. Here's the first one with the subject of shipment status, and then it has a number of what looks like a very official sounding shipment status. I'm going to click on this email to start. Now this email looks like it's coming from FedEx, and there is a link here to get a shipment label. There's a few things that we need to do to look critically at this email. The first thing that we need to do is see who it's from. Now I can see that it says that it's from FedEx same day. However, the email address that it's from doesn't match that of FedEx.com. Secondly, there's a few clues that I can read in here to let me know that something is just not right. The first one is, this is very vague. There's no return communication on this. And secondly, it's using vague words like your parcel without an actual number. And secondly, it uses the word courier. Now the courier is FedEx itself, and so they should know who they are. So there's a lot of vague information here. I'm not going to click on this link, which most likely will be inviting malicious code into my computer. I'm going to close out of this one. Let's go back to my inbox and take a look at a second one. This one says, Bank of America alert, account suspended. These are very common, getting an email that says some sort of an account that you have is suspended. Now, the easiest way to tell if this is fake or not is to know, first of all, if you're getting an account suspended notification for an account that you simply don't have. For example, if I'm not even a Bank of America customer, then right away I could tell that this is a phishing email. But things get a little more tricky when it's actually an account that you have. So right away, I'm looking at the from. It's from Bank of America alert, and the email address that goes with it matches. So I need to do some more critical sleuthing to try to figure out what's going on with this email. So it's a very official sounding email that's telling me that my account needs to be updated. There's a link here where I can sign in and update my information. And there's also a very official looking note at the bottom telling me how secure the site is. There's a few things here. I can tell right away that this is probably fake because the grammar of this sentence is very poor. You'll notice that it says, it has come to our attention that your account has not been updated to the latest terms and conditions set, and there's a space in between the period. And it does sound like it could be a little bit of a broken sentence. However, if you're still not sure and you're worried and you'd like to check your account just to make sure everything's okay, there is something that you can always do to be confident that your accounts are safe. And that is to never click on the link in the email itself. Always open up a new browser window and access your online banking account that way. And you can do the same thing with any account. For example, it's also very common to get these types of notifications about accounts like eBay. So in that case, open a new browser window and log on to your eBay account or your PayPal account. If everything looks okay, then it is okay, and you can delete this email or forward it to an auto spam service. Let's go back and look at this last email. This email says, you've been accepted by Who's Who. If I click on this email, it's telling me that I've been accepted into a professional community network called Who's Who. It looks like it's well written. There's a link here, but it also looks like it apparently comes from an actual person. Now, I'm including this one because sometimes you'll get an email that very well may be a legitimate business opportunity. And you need to know how to look critically at these so you're not missing an actual real opportunity. In this case, if you're really not sure if it's real or not, you can simply Google it. So here's an address called Global Who's Who, and a partial red flag might be the fact that this is coming from who at gcssports.com. Now, I'm not sure what that's all about, but I'm going to let that slide for a minute and Google everything else. Now, I could choose what I want to Google. In this case, I'll Google Global Who's Who and John D'Agostino, who apparently the email has come from. So let's open a new window. Global Who's Who, John D'Agostino. So right away, I can see an email called Scam Target. I can see a global directory of Who's Who complaints board, and not a whole lot about who John D'Agostino is. So in this case, I can look, here's another scam one, and do a quick search and critically go over the search results to make my own decisions about whether I feel like this is a legitimate opportunity or not. In this case, I have seen enough to know that this is most likely not a real business opportunity. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it. So these are some strategies to check your emails very critically so that you don't fall victim to these type of scams. These are called 419 scams. There's other ones too that involve a fraudulent email in which you'll be promised a significant amount of money after you provide a portion of it up front. You may have heard the term Nigerian scam, although it certainly doesn't have to originate from Nigeria. There's many instances of these emails originating from all over the world. To look critically at them, you need to go over things like who the email is from, what the actual email address is, do these things match? And look at the email very closely. Look for punctuation errors, spelling errors, grammatical errors, things that just make the email seem off. If it seems off, it probably is. And finally, don't ever click on a link directly in the email if you really want to go check and make sure your account's okay. always open up a new window and access it using the site that you know and that you always get to that site from. I'm going to show you 2 techniques to evaluate links that come into either email or that you'll see while you're using your social networks. The first thing that I have open is an email, and you'll notice that there's several links in this email. I can tell they're links because they're in blue, they're underlined, and when I hover my mouse over it, the icon changes from a pointer to a hand icon. That means I can click on it, but it's not actually telling me where it's going to take me when I click on it. These are called text links. That means there's still sentences, and the link, that is, the destination URL where this link is going to take me, is hidden from me. However, if I hover my mouse over it, on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, I can tell what URL it's going to take me to. This is through the Internet Explorer browser. Now, other browsers have similar strategies. In some browsers, the link may pop up right next to where you're hovering your mouse. Either way, if you hover your mouse over it for a few seconds, a pop-up will appear telling you what that link is. Now, one way that I can tell that these links are probably not something that I want to click on is because when I hover my mouse over each of these 3 links, I can see that it's taking me to the exact same place. In fact, this text link here is supposed to be taking me to a place where I can manage my subscriptions. Clearly, that is not where it is going. So this is an email that's going straight to the trash can. There's one more strategy. While you're using emails or other social networks, you'll see links that look like they're not going anywhere in particular. Here's a lynda.com link from Twitter. This is called a bit.ly link. This is using something called a URL shortener. In order to save characters and to look a little bit tidier, this URL has been taken from its long form to actually telling you where it's going to go into a much shorter compartmentalized URL. You can still tell it's a link because it's blue, it's underlined, and when you put your cursor over it, it changes to a hand. Here's another one up here. This one is ars.to. More and more sites are coming up with their own URL shortener techniques. It gives you more characters to actually put content beside it and describe what it is. But as a consumer and a safe web surfer, you want to know what you're clicking on before you click it. We can trust lynda.com, but that's not always going to be the case when you're scrolling through Twitter. You may not know exactly who's posting that link, and you want to know where it goes. What you can do is right-click on that link and choose Copy Shortcut, and then come over to a website called Long URL. Long URL can be found at http://longurl.org. This website is devoted to expanding these shortened URLs so that you know where the site's going to go before you click on it. In the previous step, we copied that link. I'm going to click into this search box, right-click, and choose Paste. It's going to paste my shortened link, and now I can click Expand. Here I can see the title of the expanded URL, and I can also see the actual URL that it's going to take me to. Here I can see that this is indeed going to a lynda.com site for a video. If you're ever not sure where these links are going to take you while you're traveling through your social networks, you can always take these shortened URLs and run them through longurl.org to find out exactly where that link's going to take you. More and more free public Wi-Fi connections are available to us when we're on the road or traveling. There are some considerations you should be making when connecting to these. When you connect to the network, you're first prompted as to whether it's a home, work, or public network. Be sure to select Public Network so these particular rules take effect. I've opened up the Advanced Sharing settings that's found in Control Panel to show you. When you select that a certain network is public, these are the rules that take effect. Network discovery is automatically turned off, and file and printer sharing is automatically turned off also. This is so that none of your files are available for anyone to find on the network that's also connected to that particular free public Wi-Fi connection. In Windows 8, you can also turn off network discovery manually so that other computers also using the public Wi-Fi can't find you. This is good to know how to do in case you accidentally selected that you were on a home network when in fact you were on a public Wi-Fi connection. To do this, open up the Charms bar and select Settings. From here, choose Change PC Settings at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Once you're in PC Settings, click Network on the left-hand side. Click your network connection, and then in the Find Devices and Content section, turn this off. This means that no other device that's connected to the same network will be able to find you. When you're done, you can click the X in the top right-hand side of the screen. Finally, consider using a VPN connection when you're on a public network. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and it encrypts data you send and receive while you're connected to it. You can download a VPN app like TunnelBear, which you can find at tunnelbear.com. This works on both laptop computers and small devices. You may already have to connect to a VPN when you connect to your work network. If not, you can always use this for your personal laptop also. Finally, there's one more thing. When you connect to a public Wi-Fi network, you'll get a choice to connect automatically to that network. You'll want to uncheck that box so you know that you're in control of what networks you connect to and when you connect to them. There are two strategies you can do when downloading and installing software. The first one is to make sure you're downloading the right file, and the second strategy is to make sure you're not installing any other unwanted software at the same time. Let's first make sure that we're downloading the right file. I'm on cnet.com trying to download a program called Malwarebytes Anti-Malware. I've talked about that in a previous video. cnet.com is a reputable and safe site to download from. However, sometimes it's a little hard to try to make sure you're downloading the right file. I'm on their page right now, and I can see no less than 3 download links to download a piece of software. 2 of them are going to take me to an unwanted piece of software. One of them is going to take me to the right piece of software. What we need to do is look very carefully on the page. At first glance, it looks like you're going to want to click the first big download button that you see. However, looking at it a little bit more closely, you can see that it's outlined by a rectangle. It's the same shape as a regular ad banner. And if I look at the bottom right-hand side, I can see that everything that's in this rectangle is a link to an ad for a piece of software called TuneUp Pro. So if I click this download button, it's going to instead download this other piece of software. It's the same with this square ad. I can see that an identical ad banner that looks exactly like this rectangle one is contained here within that square. And if I look at the bottom right-hand side again, I can see that it's going to download TuneUp Pro. Now the right piece of software is Malwarebytes Anti-Malware. Directly underneath that, this is the only real download link for that piece of software. So before you click on a download link, if there's multiple buttons that say download, be sure to take a few seconds and glance around the page and scrutinize it to make sure that you're really downloading the right file. Now the second strategy is to make sure that you're not installing any unwanted piece of software after you've downloaded it. Now I can't use Malwarebytes as an example for this because Malwarebytes will never include any piece of software that you didn't ask for. In fact, what Malwarebytes does is remove any software that may have been installed by mistake. I do have a different install program running already though. I've got Java running, and this may look like a typical install scenario. When you're installing a piece of software, you'll get the dialog in the middle of the screen. There'll be an install button. I'll click on that now. And usually, you can go through and click Next, accepting any defaults or changing anything as you want until the piece of software is installed. But what you need to do is, like that download page, take a few minutes on every screen and make sure that you're not going to install any piece of software that you didn't ask for. This is a very common scenario. We'll get this pop up, where we could just keep clicking Next and install the software. It's also telling us here that it's going to do a few more things to our computer. It's saying that by clicking Next, it's going to install these programs and a search app on my computer. What I can do in this case is uncheck Set and Keep Ask as my default search provider, and I'm also going to uncheck Set and Keep Ask.com as my browser homepage. I don't want this other piece of software on my homepage. In fact, it tells me right here that deselecting both of the checkboxes declines this optional offer and proceeds with the rest of the install process. That means that in addition to not making any changes that I didn't ask for, when I uncheck both of these options, it's not going to install this extra piece of software that I didn't want. So it's very important to read these steps before clicking Next. A lot of times, this is the major way that most unwanted software gets on your computer, because we put it there without realizing it or clicking Next on an install too quickly. So we can first make sure that we download the right file, and then we need to make sure that we're only installing what we really want to install. There are a few options you have to get your email inbox back under control with subscription emails. By that, I mean things like Facebook notifications, ads, and promotions from companies that you bought things from, e-newsletters, and other regular emails from vendors. The first option is to use a service like Unroll.me, and you can find that by pointing your web browser to unroll.me. Unroll.me will keep your inbox clear by giving you one daily digest email of all your subscriptions that you can go through. You can also instantly unsubscribe from any to end up with a solid list of newsletters that you actually want. The other option is to take a few minutes every morning for about a week and manually unsubscribe from unwanted emails. I say this because many years ago, using an unsubscribe button in an email was considered a very dangerous thing to do, and you may remember this time. Not only would it not unsubscribe you, but it would also let the spammer know that you were out there opening your email and reading it. So I did want to make sure everyone knows that things have changed. There is some serious legislation in place about unwanted email, and companies can now suffer real consequences by not allowing you to unsubscribe from their emails. You can scroll to the bottom of your newsletters and use the unsubscribe button. It's very fast and it's very effective. Having said that, I do want to take a minute to remind you about looking critically at the emails that you receive. I told you about safe unsubscribing, but there are still those that will send out an email maliciously. Let's go back to this email that I showed you in a previous video. The unsubscribe link is identical to every other link in the email. Unfortunately, all you can do with these is throw them in the trash or report it as spam in your email program. I do recommend you take a few minutes every morning for 1 week. Try it. Unsubscribe to some regular mailing lists or newsletters that you get or ads from companies that you really don't want to get. See if you notice a major reduction in your morning email cleanout routine after 1 week. The same way a car needs oil changes at recommended intervals, there are some things you can do to your computer to give it the regular maintenance it needs to make sure you stay safe. The first thing is to delete your browser cache, that is, temporary files, your browsing history and cookies. Not only will doing this periodically speed things up considerably, it will also delete potential web tracking cookies, clear your web history for the next person that comes along, and it will also help an antivirus scan go much quicker. To do this, I'm in Internet Explorer right now. Click the gear icon and choose Internet Options. In the Browsing History section, click Delete, and you can keep everything that's checked, and it's up to you to decide if you also want to delete your form data and your saved passwords. You'll need to make sure that you know what all your passwords are before you're actually going to delete them. Then simply click the Delete button. Every browser has a way to delete the browsing history. Ideally, if you can do this every month, it's great, but make sure you do it at least quarterly. I recommend going through once a quarter and doing all these things in order. So you can start by deleting your browser cache. After that, take a few moments and make sure that your operating system and web browser are updated with all the latest security patches. Now, I showed you how to do that in a previous video, so I'm not going to go over it now. I covered every browser and how to do it on a Mac and PC. But it's definitely important that you add this to your queue. Here's where we can check and make sure Windows Update is going according to plan. After that, once you've made sure that your browser history is clear and your operating system is up to date, check and make sure your subscription hasn't expired, and then check the scan history to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. Finally, go through all your installed programs. I'm on my Windows computer right now. I'll click Search and I'm going to type Uninstall. From here, I'm going to click Uninstall a program. This is going to bring up a list of all the programs that's installed on your computer. If you don't know what a program is, you won't want to uninstall it, but this is a good opportunity to see if there's any search tools or web browser toolbars that you didn't know were on your computer. For example, here I can see the Yahoo toolbar. Maybe I used to use this, maybe it got on my computer in some way that I didn't know how it got there. Whatever the reason, I'm going through this list now once a quarter, and I'm going to clean it out. So I'll place a checkbox next to Yahoo toolbar and I'll click Uninstall, and this will take me through the uninstall process. I'm going to click Yes. I'm really sure I want to uninstall the Yahoo toolbar. Once the toolbar is uninstalled, it will still bring me back to this uninstall screen, except you'll notice that the Yahoo toolbar is gone. So now I can continue to go through and uninstall any other search program, toolbar, or app that I know what it is, but I know that I don't want it anymore. Once you're done, you can close out of this. Finally, you should have some sort of backup plan for your computer. You can use an external hard drive, or you can copy your important documents to a cloud service like Microsoft OneDrive. But you need to think about what would happen to your important files if something happened to your computer. This is why it's always good to have some sort of backup plan for your files in place. And now on the topic of cloud services, up next I'm going to show you how to enable a very important security feature called two-factor authentication to protect all of your logins online. I'm going to show you how to add something called two-step verification, sometimes also called two-factor authentication, to as many services as you subscribe to that offer it. Two-step verification offers an additional layer of security by having you first log into the site as normal using your password, and then having the site send you a code directly to your mobile phone. You enter that code into the web browser, and then you can begin using the service. That's the second step. You won't be prompted again on that particular device, but should anyone else try to log in as you on any other machine, they'll need your phone also. So there's two factors at play here, the code on your phone and your regular password. You can also usually have two-step security make a voice call to your home if you don't have a mobile phone. But remember, that won't help if you're trying to access your account somewhere where you won't be able to answer your home phone. Let's add two-step security to a Gmail account. I've logged into a Gmail account, and I'm going to click my profile picture on the top right-hand side, and I'll click Account. From here, I'm going to click the Security tab. In the Sign In section, I can see a two-step verification section. This is how I know the two-step verification is available for this particular service. It's not available for everything, but it is available for things like Facebook, Outlook.com, Gmail, and others. So it's definitely worth it to go in and check all your accounts and see if this is an option. Right now it's disabled, but to set it up, I'm going to click Setup right next to it. I'll click the blue Start Setup button on the right-hand side. The first thing I have to do is put in my regular password. You'll get prompted for a mobile phone number to send the codes to. This should be the mobile phone number that you're always going to have on you. You can choose how you want the code sent to you, via a voice call in which a voice will read you the digits, or a text message. In this case, I'm going to select text message. I'll click the blue Send Code button, and in less than a minute, I'll get a text message directly from Google. It contains an actual code in the text message. I can then take that code and put it into the screen. Click Verify, and now I'm going to select to trust this computer. This is a desktop computer that's not going to move. I wouldn't select this if it was a laptop or something that can be lost easily. I'll click the blue Next button, and now I'll click Confirm that I do indeed want to turn on two-step verification. I'm going to reconnect all my apps later, and now, whenever I try to log into my Gmail account from any computer or device, I will first need to get that code from my mobile phone, input it in, and then I can use the device as normal. It's a great security feature. It's for your protection. So I strongly recommend that if you use any service that offers this, you should always turn it on. It's always a good idea to be aware of what information you're putting online and what it tells other people about you. So many people with the same name sign up for services that when picking a username or email address, you'll find yourself having to either come up with a very creative name or put a string of numbers after a word. This video isn't going to tell you what to pick. There's no right or wrong, but just to be aware of what you're picking. Let's take some usernames here. I'm signing up for a Gmail account, and let's say I wanted to try for Jessica0473@gmail.com. I actually have no idea if this is real or not. I'm just picking something as an example. But when we have to add numbers to the end of our email address or a username, oftentimes we pick something that's personal to us so it's easy to remember. The problem is how much information about us can be gleaned from one simple username. Take Jessica0473. This number, 0473, looks like a birth month and year. Anytime I log in somewhere with this, or send someone an email or post on a forum, I'm telling everyone that most likely, my name is Jessica, and I was born on April of 1973. In a nutshell, I'm a 41-year-old female. My entire demographic is contained in this one email address. Again, there's no right or wrong, and this 0473 may not be a birth date. My name is in my email address personally, but the numbers after it are meaningful to me in a non-demographic or identifying way. So be aware when you sign up for a username exactly what numbers you're using and what it says about you. If you've ever taken part in an online quiz or taken one on Facebook, chances are you might have given away some very important personal information about yourself. Online quizzes tend to ask questions that can be used to market to you directly. For example, when you're logged into Facebook, any quiz that you take can directly be linked to your account. Maybe it's a silly quiz like, what book describes you, will ask a question about the time of day you normally go to the grocery store. It seems innocent enough, like it's trying to figure out what main character in a book might also be a night owl or a morning go-getter. But that information can be used to tell whoever Facebook is selling your answers to about your shopping habits. Also, some quizzes may just be plain dangerous. From time to time, you'll see various quizzes make their way through people's status updates, things like, what's your rock star name? It involves answering a series of questions such as, what was the name of your first pet and what was the name of the street you grew up on? The problem is that these quizzes and these answers are very common security answers for online services such as web banking and other financial sites. When you answer these, you're leaving these answers wide open for others to see and use. Quizzes can be fun, and there's plenty out there that are harmless, and you can take those online. But it's important to be aware of any question that seems like it can be turned around and used for marketing or security purposes. From time to time, you should check all your social networks and go through the security and privacy settings again just to see if there's any new features or if your situation has changed and you might want to update your privacy settings for whatever reasons you have. In Twitter, you can access your privacy settings by clicking on your avatar name and choosing Settings. From here on the left-hand side, you can click Security and Privacy, and it will bring up this window. This is the window that you want to check every so often, maybe quarterly. There could be some new privacy features in here. And also, maybe you've decided that before your tweets were public, but now you want to protect your tweets. Or also, you could have a checkbox next to Add a location to my tweets, and you may not realize it. So you might also be tweeting to people where you are physically, and you didn't even know you were doing that. It's always a good idea to come in and check and see just what kind of data you're giving away about yourself to other people. It works the same way with Facebook. Facebook makes it easy to change your privacy settings now. On the top right-hand side of the screen, click the padlock icon. From here, you can do a basic privacy checkup. You can find out who can see everything that you post, and you can click on See More Settings to also change every single privacy setting that Facebook will let you change. Finally, every site that collects data should have a privacy policy. We'll be talking about that in a later video about a website that you may own, but for now it's important to know that if you're ever curious what kinds of things a particular site is doing with your data, look for the privacy policy. I'm on the social network Klout right now, and on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, I can see their terms of service, a help link, a link to tell me about Klout, and here's a link that says privacy. It could say privacy or it could say privacy policy, but either way, this is going to tell you what data the site collects about you. If I click on that link, it's going to take me to Klout's privacy policy. Here's an overview. I can read a basic overview of what they're doing with my data. And if I wanted to read the thorough privacy policy, complete with all the legal words, I can click Privacy Policy, and it will bring up the complete policy. It also tells you when that policy date is effective, because websites are constantly updating their privacy policy as they change how they use the data that they collect about you. It's often said, that when there's a social network or a marketing product that's free, then you're the product, and the chances are good that data that they collect about you is being sold to other companies to use for marketing purposes and other information. But you can always find out what they're doing with that data by taking the time to read their privacy policy. When you sign up for a new online service, you can save yourself some junk email in your inbox by being proactive when you're signing up. Here's a typical sign-up box online. It usually contains places where you can put your first name, your email, and your password, and you can create a username. I did talk in a previous video about how to create a good and safe username, so I'm not going to do that here. But right now I want to talk about this little box right above the register button. This is called the opt-in or opt-out button. This is going to designate whether or not you're opting in to receive emails and promotions and newsletters or junk mail from people that you register with online. Sometimes you have to check the box not to receive the mail. Sometimes you have to uncheck the box not to receive the mail. Or maybe you do want it and you have to check the box. You need to read it very carefully to make sure you end up with the choice that you want. Let's look at another one. Here's another typical sign-in box to create an account online. This one already had the radio button checked off. So if you're going through this list and you click the blue Create Account button, you've automatically opted in to getting email promotions from this company. So it's up to you to realize that you need to uncheck this first. Let's look at one more. This is a store login. When you create an account here on the left-hand side, you can put in all the usual details like your name, your email address, and a security question. Now, most likely you can fill in these answers and then immediately go and click the red Create Profile button. But here, the opt-in and opt-out section is on the right-hand side. It's very easy to miss. In fact, if the radio button's already selected, then you would automatically be signed up for that list. So it's worth creating a quick glance around the page to make sure that you didn't accidentally opt into something that you didn't want to get. Opting out at the time that you're registering for an account can save you lots of junk mail in your inbox. So it's worth taking a few extra seconds to opt in or opt out based on how you want it. There's a few extra considerations you need to take into effect when you're browsing on a public computer. And by that I mean at a library or somebody else's house, any computer that's not your own, that other people are going to be using. The first thing is when you sign in to any internet accounts that you have, make sure you look at this Stay Signed In box. A lot of times there's already a checkbox next to it. So when you fill in your username and password, if you don't uncheck this, then the next person that comes along will be signed in as you. Or if the next person to sit down also wants to log into Etsy, your username can automatically be already populated into here. I'm going to close out of this. There's a special feature that all browsers have called private browsing. When you're sitting down at a public computer, this is something that you always want to turn on. Private browsing is a way of browsing the internet and not saving particular pieces of information along the way. For example, when you start a private browsing session, any pages that you visit will not be saved. Any URLs in this URL bar will not be saved. Anything you type into a Google search bar or any other search engine. Any password that you type in. Also, any cookies that you encounter along the way and that you pick up from websites will not be saved to track you. It's a great thing to do and it's a very good habit to get into when you sit down at a public computer to always turn on private browsing. So let's do that from a few different browsers. In Internet Explorer, click the gear icon on the top right-hand side and select Safety. In the Safety menu, choose In Private Browsing. This is going to pop up a new window, and I'm going to click the middle button at the top to maximize it. Now that we've started an In Private Browsing session, we'll know that we're always doing it because of this blue icon on the left-hand side. So now I can type Google, and I can start a private browsing session. Anything I put into this search box is not going to be saved, and any website that I visit from this URL bar is not going to be saved. When I'm done, to close out of my private browsing session, I can simply close out of this window. So that's Internet Explorer. Let's look at Google Chrome. To start a private browsing session using Google Chrome, click the three lines in the top right-hand side of the page and choose New Incognito Window. It works the exact same way as Internet Explorer. Also, When you're using Mozilla Firefox, which I've just launched, click the same 3 lines in the top right-hand side, except this time choose New Private Window. It's going to start up a new private browsing window. The last thing that you need to remember is that when you're signed into an account, before you're done walking away from that public computer, even if you're using a private browsing session, because this is just a good habit to get into, is to always log off first. When you're signed in somewhere, look for the Sign Out button. It's usually on the top right-hand side of the page, though not always. This way, it's ready to go for the next person even if you've forgotten to close out of that private browsing window. Speaking of forgetting, if you did forget to turn on a private browsing session, that's okay. It's a hard habit to get into, but what we need to do before we walk away from that public computer is to erase all our tracks of what we did while we were there. To do that, we can delete the browsing history, including a few extra options. In Internet Explorer, I'm going to click the gear in the top right-hand side and choose Internet Options. In the Browsing History section, I'm going to click Delete, and in addition to the default items that it wants to delete, I'm also going to check Download History, Forum Data, which are things that I put into Google search boxes, and any saved passwords. Also, Tracking Protection. I'm going to talk about that in a later video. This is going to delete everything that was stored along the way while I was browsing. I can click the Delete button, click OK. Once it's done deleting, I can close out of the browser window, and I know that I've left no traces of what I had done while I was sitting at that public computer. Throughout this course, I've talked about cookies a lot without going into what they are. They're a big part of the web browsing experience, so let's go over them now. A cookie is a name given to a small text file that's placed on your computer by the designers of the website when you visit that site. For example, I'm on Google right now. The contents of the text file can be continuously updated. Cookies do things like track how you visit a site and follow links all over the site, where you go and how you navigate them. They save theme preferences or any site customizations that you make. They can save your login information, any site preferences or settings that you make while you're there, or any Save My Selection opt-in items that you might have chosen. A cookie itself is just a text file. There's no code on them, and they can't give you viruses on your computer. In fact, the cookie itself only contains a few pieces of information. The website that stored the cookie, in this example, google.com, the date the cookie expires, which can be set by the site itself, and numbers which are meaningful to the website once it reads back the cookie. A person can't sit down at your computer, look at cookies, and know anything other than the website you visited that it came from. There's 2 types of cookies, first-party cookies and third-party cookies. First-party cookies are set by the website you're on itself. Remember when I just said that a cookie contains the website's name that the cookie came from? For example, Google. It's the way Google remembers your search settings. And also, the way Amazon remembers your name, recommended for Jessica, when you sign in. If you're on Amazon and the website of the cookie is from Amazon, it's a first-party cookie. Third-party cookies are set on a website, but given the name of a different site. For example, I'm still on Amazon, but you'll notice that Amazon does contain advertisements. In fact, here's one right here. Amazon can set a cookie on your computer for another site, say this ad banner company. That ad banner company may set their third-party cookies on many sites. Maybe it's an ad network that many sites use. This is why sometimes when you browse Amazon or search for an item on Google, you may find yourself seeing that product in ad banners on multiple sites you visit while you're browsing the web. While you are on Amazon looking at a product, the third party set a cookie telling itself what product you were looking at. While you're on another site that uses the same ad banner company, the cookie is read back on that site, they see what the product was, and they show you the ad for it. Web browsers give you the choice of how you want to handle accepting both first and third-party cookies. In Internet Explorer, click the gear icon in the top right-hand side and choose Internet Options. Click the Privacy tab, then click Advanced. Here's where you can override the way that cookies are handled on your computer. You can place a checkbox next to Override Automatic Cookie Handling. First-party cookies you can choose to accept, block, or prompt. First-party cookies are considered an integral part of web surfing, and you may find that a lot of sites simply don't work without you accepting first-party cookies, though you can certainly turn them off and see what happens. but it'll be very hard for sites to store your login information or any other preferences that you've saved. Third-party cookies, you can choose whether or not you want to accept them, block them, or prompt them. You can make your selection, click OK, and then click OK again. You can also choose how you want to override any cookie options by going back into Internet Options, clicking the Privacy tab again, and this time clicking Sites. This will allow you to universally block or allow any cookies from a specific site. So if you've chosen to block all cookies altogether, but you really need one site to function properly, you can put in that URL, click Allow, and then click OK. Privacy is very relative, and what can be considered an unacceptable level of tracking for you may be okay for somebody else, and vice versa. That's why you get the choice of how you want your browser to handle it. Both the websites Google and Amazon create targeted ads based on your surfing habits or products that you've looked at or purchased. You can control these. You can't stop the ads altogether, but you can control what they are and how they relate to you, so this can protect your privacy if it's starting to recommend things that are a little too close to home for your comfort level that keep popping up on your screen all the time. Let's look at the Google Ads settings first. To find out what demographics Google is using to serve you ads, visit the website www.google.com/ads/preferences. When you visit this site, you'll see the settings for Google Ads that you see across all Google products, like searching, Gmail, YouTube, even Google Maps. You can see what gender it has set for you and your age, and you can visit your Google profile from here to change those digits. You can change your interests. These are where the ads are coming from. Now, it chooses these interests based on your previous search activity. You can either click Edit and change those directly, or you can click Opt Out right at the bottom to opt out of interest-based ads altogether. Now, you'll still see ads, but they're not going to be ads that are based on the things that you're searching for. So remember, google.com/ads/preferences. This will bring you into the Google settings for their ads. Let's head over to Amazon now and see how they do it. When you log into Amazon, it knows who you are, it shows you your account section, and it also shows you some product recommendations, both on the home screen and while you're navigating through the site. So how does it pick those recommendations? We can find out by clicking Recommended For and then clicking on your name right on the home page. From here, I'm going to see some product recommendations. These are things that I could see on the home page or while I was browsing. I have a few links at the top. I have a list of my browsing history, a list of products it's recommended for me, and then a way here to improve my recommendations. I can select any of these options to fine-tune the things that I see on Amazon. But sometimes you don't want something showing up at all. Maybe it's something that you searched for, or it's something that you purchased. Maybe you bought something as a gift, and now it's skewing all future recommendations for products for something that you're not interested in at all. You were just buying it for somebody else. You can turn off that recommendation. Here's a list of things that were previously bought. I can click on Why Recommended, and Amazon is going to tell me why I saw it there. So it's showing me this product because this is in fact something that I had already bought. I have two choices here. I can click on This was a gift, in which I'm telling Amazon that it was a gift for somebody else, or I can also say, don't use this for recommendations. This way, it won't filter any other product results based on this product. So there are a lot of things that you can do to target your web settings, both with Amazon and with Google. It's just a matter of taking the time to go through those settings and see how these sites are serving you their ads. In this day and age, social networks make it possible for us to instantaneously upload photos from our lives to all our friends in the world. Now, with these photos here and yours, most viewers will be drawn right into the focal point in the photo, which is what we want. The people in this photo and the car in this one. But you don't want anyone with sharp eyes to notice the smaller details. For example, this car's license plate is clearly visible. And also, you can see the bus number here. You don't want people to see things like a street intersection name on a signpost of a photo right in front of your house. And also, a child could be smiling nicely, but they might be wearing a school logo t-shirt. You probably don't want to be broadcasting these things to people. So here are some tools that you can use that come free built in to Windows that you can very easily edit these things out of your photos. I'm going to close these out. We'll get back to the desktop and start right from the very beginning. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to use a program called Paint. To do this, I'm going to right-click on my photo and select Edit. This is going to bring up a program called Microsoft Paint, and Microsoft Paint has been around since the very early editions of Windows. I'm going to use the scroll bars to find the area on my photo that I want to hide. In this case, it's the bus number. The method that I'm going to use here is to first choose this background color to be the same color as the bus, and then I'm going to use this eraser tool to erase the number 6. What I first need to do is select the color of the bus. I'm going to click on this color picker tool, and now I'm going to pick an area that's right near the 6. I want to get as close as possible to it so that it blends as nicely as possible. Because I need to select the background color, I'm going to use my right mouse button and click. You'll notice that as soon as I did that, color number 2 has changed to this orange color. The color picker has picked up the color that I sampled and has placed it as the background color. Now I can choose my eraser tool. I'll click the eraser, and it's a simple matter now of clicking and dragging with my mouse to actually erase that 6. It doesn't have to be entirely perfect because I'm just doing this so I can post it on a social network. In fact, when I zoom away from the picture, and I can do that by clicking the minus sign in the bottom right-hand side of the screen to zoom out, you'll notice that you can still see it ever so slightly, but that 6 is gone, and it hasn't gotten in the way of distracting the rest of my picture, which is really the important part. From here, it's just a matter of saving the picture. I'm going to close out of this for now, though, and I'll show you how to do the next one. There's another program that you can use, too. You can use another photo editing software that's native in Windows. To access this program, I'm going to right-click on my photo, and instead of choosing Edit, I'm going to select Open With, and instead of Paint, I'm going to choose Photos. This is going to open up a full-screen app. I can see my picture, and what we're going to do here is actually blur out this license plate. I'm going to move my mouse and click on the bottom of the screen to bring up a menu. From here, on the right-hand side, I'm going to click Edit. The editing tools are going to pop up on the left-hand side, and I'll choose Basic Fixes. The basic fix that I want to choose is using the Retouch tool. This is going to allow me to blur out anything. Now, normally it's used for portraits to retouch any blemishes or defects that are in your picture. But in this case, I'm going to actually use it and click on my license plate. It's going to blur the screen around. I can get it to a point where it's no longer readable, but you'll notice that it's still keeping the colors in that license plate. So it hasn't actually altered, or it won't distract from the photo in any way. Once I'm done, I can click on the bottom of the screen again and either save a brand new copy of the photo or update the original photo. In this case, I'll choose Save a Copy. And now to exit out of this photo, I can simply move my mouse to the top of the screen and click the X on the right-hand side. Now my photos are safe to post on social networks, and I've hid any personal data or any revealing information that might give away mine or somebody else's privacy. We've all gotten email forwards like this. It comes from somebody, and you have to scroll through a long list of everybody that email was sent to find out what the actual body of the email is. Now, sometimes you can just discard the message, you don't want it, but sometimes, like this one who's trying to support a local business person, you genuinely might want to send it out to lots of people that you know. If you want to do that, there's a few things that you can keep in mind to protect the email addresses of the person that you received it from and all the people that you're going to send it to. The first thing we're going to do, and I'm using Gmail for this example, is click Forward, because we are going to forward this along to more people. It's going to pop up a new window. The first thing I need to do is put my cursor in the body of the email. Even though it's a forward, I can still delete any part of this email that I want to. I can also add to it. So in addition to typing a message saying, I thought you might be interested in this, I can also remove all the previous header information, email addresses, and text of the prior people that it had been sent to. This is a courtesy and allowing other people to not have to scroll through it as well as protecting their privacy. So I can come through and delete all this text. But there's one more thing. Even when you get to the body of your email message, be sure to look a little bit below that, because you might find that the person who sent it to you originally may have a signature file. And that signature file, which could contain their contact information, it's a file that automatically gets appended to the bottom of every email without them having to type it. Because it appends to the bottom of the email after all the body text, it's very easy to miss, and it's easy to forget about when you're removing other people's contact information from emails. So always take your time and make sure you scroll to the very bottom and delete any lingering contact information that may have been appended to the bottom of who originally sent it out. Now we're left with a brand new, clean email that only contains the element that we actually want to send. And now I can put in my own text. It's time to choose the recipients of the email. Instead of pasting all my recipients into the To field, I'm going to put them into the BCC field, which stands for Blind Carbon Copy. This is going to send out a copy to multiple people. However, they're going to be blind to who else I'm sending it to. As far as they're concerned, I'm sending it just to them. This protects the email addresses of everybody that I'm sending it to. Every email program is going to be different. In Gmail, you can activate the Blind Carbon Copy field by clicking BCC all the way on the right-hand side. If I click that field, it's going to become a field that I can then populate with my email addresses. In this case, I can paste them right in. Now there's a long list of email addresses. They won't know who I'm sending it to. There's no contact information, and there's no lengthy email to scroll through. It's a very nice, clean, responsible way to send out an email, and everybody will appreciate it. In addition to protecting other people's email addresses when you're going to forward something out, you can also protect their privacy on social networks like Facebook and Foursquare. For example, take this Facebook post about a concert event going on. I could tag this person saying, I know Matt Stratton is going with me, who else? But because I'm directly tagging this person, that means it's going to show up on his Facebook page. Now, every single person that he's friends with will know exactly when and where Matt is going to be, because without his permission, I've just told everybody. So think about next time you're going to tag somebody for a particular event, or if you're just giving a friendly tag such as having coffee with so-and-so at so-and-so. Make sure you get their permission first. The other thing I like to do is change the way I use Foursquare. Foursquare is an app in which you can get good deals on lots of services and also check in when you're arriving there. You can open your mobile phone when you arrive at a certain location, press the check-in button, and you'll be tagged as having been there. You can get rewards for visiting a certain type of business often. If you still want to get these rewards without telling everybody that's in your Foursquare network where you are physically, you can always click the check-in button right when you're getting ready to leave. That way you still get the credit for having been there. However, anybody who sees you check in, if they try to go there, you won't be there because you've checked in right before you walked out of the door. Your phone still knows you're there because you're checking in at the location. However, it's protecting your privacy and the privacy of anybody who may be with you. So it's always a good idea to be aware of what kinds of things you're tagging other people with. Tagging them to a photo is one thing, but tagging them to a complete place, location, or time is a completely different matter, and one you need their permission for first. At one time or another, you've probably gotten an email from someone containing a warning or an offer for a company. The warning could be about a computer virus or about a new terrible crime going around. The offer could be something that sounds too good to be true, like this one here. So how do you know what to believe? Take this offer that someone just emailed me about PlayStations. This is currently making the rounds on social networks like Facebook. When I get one of these from someone, or if I'm just not sure, I always verify it first at a website called Snopes.com. Snopes is run by a couple who has been doing this full-time since 1995. It started out as something called the Urban Legends reference pages, but since then, it's evolved into the one place to go for the truth, as the site values facts and evidence above all else. You can go to the site, come down here to the search box and type in your query. Click Go, and it will take you to some search results. They're very current to any email forwards that are going around. So here's the current one that I found in my inbox. I'm going to click on it and see what it has to say. You can see the claim, and then if you scroll down in a little bit, you'll see very quickly whether it's true or false, or if it's partially true or false. You can also scroll down and read an explanation of the facts and of the origin of the rumor itself. This is helpful so you're doing your part to prevent spreading false information. But what I also like to do is send off a polite note explaining about Snopes and how it works. It's very hard to know what to believe on the internet, and situations like these are a great opportunity to reply to these emails and educate other people on how to search for it themselves, find out whether it's true, and how to use Snopes.com to keep everybody safe, and so they'll know for next time also. If your website uses cookies, if you have a form where people can submit their email addresses to be put on a mailing list, or even if you use ad banners or Google Analytics to track statistics about your website, then you need to create a privacy policy. I've talked previously about how to read another company's privacy policy. For example, I'm on the Klout webpage. If I scroll all the way to the bottom of their site, I can click on this link that says Privacy and read their privacy policy about what types of data they're collecting on their website about me and what they're doing with it. In addition to being a requirement for using Google Analytics or even being an Amazon affiliate, having a privacy policy readily available on your website to read will also help you build trust from your customers and website visitors. What does a privacy policy have to contain? It can contain whether or not you plan on selling tracking data to third parties, whether or not you use cookies, what types of things that your logging software is collecting, such as mouse clicks, referring pages and ending pages, IP addresses and internet service providers. You can also talk about how you plan on using any information that you collect. You can create a privacy policy using software on the internet, such as this website called freeprivacypolicy.com. This site walks you through the types of services that you use, and it helps you build an appropriate policy based on that information. It's a step-by-step process. Once you're all done and you get your privacy policy text, you can simply paste that text onto a page on your website, and that link should be clearly labeled Privacy Policy. Now, any visitor that goes to your website can scroll to the bottom of the page or on your navigation bar or somewhere where it's prominently located and be able to see your privacy policy.